So, Kaizen issue 41, a God-shaped hole. And this was sort of like a personal look at just how my mindset has shifted about spirituality over the past few years. Not just the past few years, but like the past year, and then more recently, maybe the past month or two. And I'm curious where you came at it from, and like what your perspective was on the issue, based on like based on your indigenous culture, but also like your upbringing and like just different experiences you've had.
Yeah. I'll start off with like when I had my first spiritual connection.
Yeah, sure.
Is that fine?
Yeah,
Yeah. Is that kind of the way you want to lead?
you can talk about whatever you want.
Okay. Yeah. I joined the IST program at Camosun, which is Indigenous Studies, and we got to explore all kinds of things. We got to explore carving, how to bead, doing arts and crafts. And in one of our courses was Indigenous law, and she had implemented doing a sweat lodge, and that was my very first time experiencing something spiritual. Prior to
Cool.
that, I was very open to the idea of a higher power. In my culture, we say a creator, and
Yeah.
so I had a very strong belief there was something, but I didn't actually have that spirituality part to it.
Yeah.
And then I went into the sweat lodge, and I just remember seeing how they set it up. You could feel the different energy. Um, and as we were entering, I had that fear. And they say that like you either go into fight mode or you go into flight mode during a sweat lodge. And I went straight into flight. I was just pure petrified, knowing the fact that we were about to be sitting in darkness. And we all went in, and it's a compact space, so you're all sitting there.
Yeah.
And as soon as the door shut and it went black, and the host, his name's Mushum, and he started, saying the rituals, asking for prayers and asking for guidance for us during the sweat lodge. And he's splashing the water, and each time he dipped the cedar branch into the water and splashed it on the rocks, the harder it was to breathe. It
Yeah.
got very difficult to breathe. But it was about 5 minutes into it and I'm drenched in sweat. I could barely breathe. I felt like I was fainting. I kind of just had like a random out of body experience. It was like as if I was looking at myself from outside of the sweat lodge,
Hmm.
and all of a sudden memories were brought up. I just started thinking of childhood traumatic events that I went through, and some of it didn't feel like my own memories.
Hmm.
And so my conclusion on that part was that it was intergenerational trauma that I was experiencing. Like I remember having a memory of seeing a kid locked up in a cage, and I just remember being in some sort of basement, and my grandpa had talked about seeing kids in cages when he was in residential school.
Yeah.
So I theorized that maybe I had an intergenerational trauma memory come into me, and it was through him that I had that memory. Um, and that was my first time where I was like, okay, this is where everything connects. Like it's like a full circle.
Yeah.
And I remember asking for guidance and for strength to move forward in my life. And I just remember hearing this voice telling me that I was going to be okay. And that was the first round, and I came outside of the sweat lodge, and my first instinct was to just break down in tears, because it was
Yeah.
almost like it felt so healing, even though I had these major events in my life
Yeah.
that were going through my head at that time. I just remember feeling relief, like I needed to experience that. I needed to feel that in order to grow. Um, and then just so many questions going through my head, like,
Yeah.
is this actually a real spiritual event? Like, did I actually experience something? were the memories actually transcended through my grandpa to me, or was it just a coincidence? And after that day, I started to meditate, and I started to explore more spiritual activities. And my second spiritual awakening was my anxiety attack. I had an anxiety attack where I woke up and I was just petrified of something was coming after me. Even though I knew nothing was coming after me, it was the feeling. I didn't think something was coming. I felt like something was coming. And so I went outside into my garden and I just looked at the ocean and I shut my eyes and I asked the creator to come help me. And it was another like out of body experience. It was like as if I was looking at myself and I was telling myself like, you're going to be okay, and that you don't need to feel this scaredness. You don't need to be scared anymore. And after that point, that's when I knew there was something higher up, because my questions were being answered. I was feeling more connected to the world, more grounded, more connected to people. And from that point on, I just knew that I was interconnected to the land, to the waters, to the people, and to the creator, and that we were all one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. A lot of heavy stuff, but
yeah,
it's interesting for me because as I was talking about the issue, I'm still in this like rationality place where I understand it conceptually, but I don't have any direct experience with anything, like no religious experience, no meditative like awakening moment, no out of body thing.
Yeah.
I've never had like that felt sense of connectedness or of a higher power or hearing my questions answered or anything. But I've started to open up to the possibility of it more because it just seems like there has to be something.
Yeah.
And I think I'm open to it now, and I can wrap my head around the likelihood that there is some sort of thing that is being accessed through multiple different pathways, because like you could meditate and have an experience, you could pray to God and have an experience, you can go in a sweat lodge and have an experience. There's lots of different pathways that all seem to lead to not the same thing necessarily, but like the same types of ideas. Like it's always like something relating to connection with other people or oneness, or some sort of unexplainable thing that you sort of like feel like you glimpse into or something, from what I've heard from people's descriptions. And just that seems like too coincidental for me to not believe something is there. But the problem is that like I don't have proof, isn't like the right word, but I don't have like the experience of experiencing it. So I'm sort of just sitting in this weird, as I mentioned in the piece, like I call it the threshold, like I'm orbiting a black hole, where like I know maybe at some point I'll have an experience in the future, but I can't really do anything about forcing it to happen. It might happen, it might not, but I know that it's a possibility now, and I'm not like actively resisting it. Because for a while I was like really scientific, logical, hardcore atheist.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, there's no way there's like some mystical man in the sky or some sort of power that's like guiding people's lives, or I didn't believe in like ghosts or spiritual, supernatural, anything. I mean, I don't think I really believe in ghosts in the same way.
Yeah.
Still, but I can't say for certain that people don't have some sort of something that persists after death. Like I would have no way of knowing.
Yeah.
I guess it's been sort of like a a journey of humility, of just being able to say, I don't know, and I'm okay with not knowing.
Yeah.
And I'm also okay with the possibility that things might just be completely different to how I assumed they were in the past.
Yeah. I think people fear the unknown.
Yeah.
And so it's very difficult to navigate how you want to believe in something higher up, based on that fear that you have towards spirituality. And so I think you've already started the first step, which is being vulnerable.
Yeah.
Vulnerable not only to yourself, but to the world. Being vulnerable to either a God, a higher power, or something maybe
Some
like,
sort of connective energy or
yeah,
something. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And so you've already done the first step. And most people don't have spiritual connections. Most of them don't have that spiritual experience, but they still believe in something higher up.
Yeah.
And I think that's what helps us get through life. But not only that, that it's an actual real thing. Like there's something that connects us all. Either we are all one mind, or all one pathway to something else. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to know
Yeah.
without, like, maybe it isn't even knowable.
Yeah.
It might just be like, like the way, if you imagine living in the two-dimensional world, you couldn't imagine a third dimension. Like if you only had left, right, forward, backward, you couldn't imagine an up or a down. And like in the same way, like our level of existence we just might not be able to understand whatever connective force there is, or may or may not exist, or some sort of higher power or whatever. And you can experience it, like people will talk about experiencing, connecting to it, but like it's basically all anecdote, which is, not scientifically provable, at least not yet, maybe. I know there's some proposed mechanisms. Dr. K has talked about, I don't know if you know him, he's like a psychiatrist. He's talked about like some experimental research looking at how there might be some way to naturally release DMT in the brain. And then that could somehow be accessed or harnessed through meditation or through and out of like a sweat lodge or something like that, that would like create the experience in your mind. But even then, we don't know if that experience of having those compounds in the brain is connecting you to something, or if it's just a hallucination. But again, I think the hallucination thing seems like a dismissal, because if you're just saying, oh, everyone who has a spiritual experience, out of body experience, they're just hallucinating. But how would all these people be hallucinating the same thing and similar ideas?
Yeah.
That all talk about connection and oneness from so many different cultures, from so many different pathways, and across hundreds of years of history. Like this is stuff that's in ancient Hindu religious texts and like all sorts of stuff like that. So like the funny thing is, like, saying it's all just a hallucination seems like that requires more faith to say that than it does to say, no, there's probably something. I don't know what it is, but it's probably something there.
Yeah.
Sorry, go
ahead. I think like from a Western scientific view, you can say I hallucinated because I was on the edge of fainting in the sweat lodge.
Yeah, maybe.
And my body went into flight mode. So some could say I hallucinated, but I think there's a difference between like you thinking you're hallucinating and knowing you're hallucinating. I don't think or know if I was hallucinating.
Well, are you saying that like, even if you were hallucinating, like it could have been a connection to something?
Yeah, I guess so. Like even despite the fact that just maybe I was hallucinating,
you can't know.
I could never know, but what I felt was true.
Yeah.
My mind and my body maybe didn't know what I was going through, but that feeling, the intellectual emotion that I felt in that moment, it's undescribable. You can't, there's no English word for how I felt in that moment. Because
Yeah.
I felt all of these things coming in. I felt my trauma, I felt sadness, I felt happiness, I felt relief. And it wasn't just like one after the other, it was all at once. It was just like a huge wave of emotions going over me. And what I felt was true. And I know that piece.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't know if I actually hallucinated. Um, and like I said, it's probably a Western scientific view. I hallucinated, but coming from an indigenous perspective, um, I think most would say what I experienced was real.
Yeah. I think it's interesting. Science pushes our understanding of the world, but sometimes it can only get us so far. Like, as I was talking about in the issue with the hard problem of consciousness, we don't really know what consciousness is. Like, we have ideas of what it could be,
Yeah,
tons of theories that are not really testable in any way. We know it's something to do with like electrical activity in the brain, but we can't pinpoint one specific part of the brain and be like, that's the consciousness part right there.
yeah,
Our best idea is maybe it's like, just all of the activity working together somehow in the brain, all the neurons firing creates consciousness, but there's no explanation for how that would happen.
mm,
Um, so maybe consciousness is part of it because I think, well, like the only way people access this out of body experience or spiritual experience is some sort of like it's a mental experience, right? It's not like you only feel it in your body and you don't feel it in your mind.
mm,
Like every time it's either like meditation is very mental or maybe a sweat lodge, you have like tons of adrenaline flowing through you or something that would alter your brain. That would be mental. Or like praying is like honestly kind of a form of meditation anyway. So like that would also like everything is like some sort of mental pathway. Even like taking psychedelics,
yeah,
it's all like a mental pathway. So I think, yeah, consciousness has to play a role in it somehow, but I don't know.
absolutely. Beliefs also play a major role in spirituality. Like in my culture, we say Qʊyɛgəns for strong-minded, strong heart.
Mm-hmm.
And you cannot access the spiritual world without being strong-minded or strong-hearted. And the way you do that is by focusing on how your mind is. What's your mind like? When you go into your heart, you feel what's in your heart. What are your inspirations? What are your aspirations? How do you truly feel? And both connect together and go into the spiritual world. And there is where you experience your spirituality, is within the spiritual world. But that's only in my culture.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting because I've heard almost the exact same idea slash description,
Mm,
just with different terminology, both from Dr. K, who I talked about before, he practiced as a monk, like a Hindu monk, I'm
mm,
pretty sure. Um, and a lot of the stuff he talks about is like Hinduism, spirituality. Um, and for them, they call that the third eye chakra, which is your head,
that's right.
and the heart chakra, which is your heart.
Yeah, that's right.
And then Joe Hudson, who I've been getting into a lot, he does a ton of like emotional vulnerability work stuff.
Mm,
He comes at it from sort of like a non-religious meditation lens, and he talks about it in the same way, but he just calls it head awakening and heart awakening.
yeah,
And he says that it's all about like fully welcoming everything that comes through you in terms of emotions that arise, thoughts that arise, whatever that's there. And that's kind of the pathway that led me into this sort of spiritual openness that
okay,
I'm in right now.
yeah,
Like I came into it through this like vulnerability and emotional pathway because that's the one that made the most sense to me. Is that
yeah,
like as I was saying the issue like vulnerability creates the room for spirituality to grow because when you welcome all
yeah,
of the parts of yourself, then you're like fully open to whatever can happen within you or without
yeah,
outside of you. And I think like the consciousness thing I was talking about, like I think the spiritual force or whatever connective energy, like the reason it's connected to consciousness is because it's within us.
Absolutely.
So like
Yeah.
when you sit with yourself and fully welcome all parts of yourself, then you can, like, I think you find the answers spiritually within yourself.
Yeah.
And that's probably how it works with like meditation, but like I think similar things can happen through different pathways, that it's like um for lack of a better term, you could say God is inside of us, or the creator is inside of us, or like
Yeah.
that's what the connectedness is that it's like you find it inside of yourself. You
Yeah.
don't go looking out into the world for it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. That's probably the greatest advice and guidance anybody could ever receive when it comes to exploring spirituality. You need to let yourself be vulnerable and let those pathways come through you. If all you're doing is searching for a spiritual side of you, I don't know if you'll ever find it.
Yeah.
I think you won't, just because you're searching so much when everything that you need is right in front of you and within you. All you need to do is be vulnerable. Let ideas, let those feelings, let those beliefs come through you. And you don't
Yeah.
need to be determined on one belief or one religion.
Mm-hmm.
I'm open to the idea of interconnectedness. I think interconnectedness is the same as believing in the creator, but they're almost different. Like believing in the creator is a belief, but believing in interconnectedness is more of an ideology. Like interconnectedness is what connects us all within one. The creator may not connect us all. He may only connect my people. And so there's different pathways you could go. But I think that's probably the greatest advice you'll ever receive, is to let things come to you. And I think that's where I struggled with for the first 19 years of my life.
Yeah.
Like I said, I was open to the idea of something. There was a higher power, but I didn't actually truly believe in the creator, without
Or interconnectedness.
without having that experience. And it just all happened at once. It was almost like I like to say spiritual awakening, because I just experienced it. And it felt like I just woke up. Like it felt like I was like, okay, I've been missing this my entire life.
Yeah.
And all I had to do was be vulnerable and go into that sweat lodge, knowing I was scared, knowing, like, fearing the unknown when I went in there. And then when I opened up to the words being spoken by the host, I just like didn't know what he was saying, but I felt like I understand what he was praying for, if
Yeah.
that makes sense. Yeah. And
Like you could
so
feel the weight behind it.
yeah, I could feel like something was there. And like even in the sweat lodge, I felt like I was being surrounded, um, from past relatives or present relatives. I just felt like there was more than just the seven of us who were in there. I felt like there was a whole like generations surrounded by us, protecting me and helping me go through these emotions.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, there's the idea that, like in many indigenous cultures, they call it seven generational thinking, where they think of seven generations ahead, and seven generations behind. And so, the way I see it and the way that I feel it is that I have seven generations behind me, supporting me. And the best way to think of it is like imagine yourself in a big empty space. And then all of a sudden, you have seven generations with their hands on you and their hands on each other's backs, and you're in the dead center of the circle, and they're all there. How can you be stopped with seven generations behind you? And so that opened my idea, or my eyes to exploring the fear that I was feeling in that moment, was that I need to just let it go. I need to quit holding back and just let it come to me, because I have this major support behind me. So just let it come in, and everything just flopped on me, and I just took it. And I walked away feeling better than I was, greater than who I was. And I felt like I had a willingness to become and learn how to be better.
Yeah. I think the openness is a big part of it, and it's really important because, and that's kind of just where I'm sitting now, but from everything I've heard from people who've had experiences or had some sort of awakening of some kind, they always say, like, you can't force it. Like, chasing it doesn't accelerate it coming, basically. Like, you can't make it happen. You just have to let it happen if it happens.
Yeah.
And sitting in that patience and uncertainty of whether you believe in it or aren't sure if it's going to happen, that is basically what the spiritual journey is.
Yeah. It's definitely a lot about being open-hearted and open-minded to new ideas, to new belief systems.
Yeah.
And eventually you'll find your way in the spiritual world, wherever that might be. Maybe you take on the Buddhism. Maybe you take on that religion, or you take on, like the chakras. Maybe you go down that route, or maybe you believe in the Creator or in God and Jesus.
Yeah.
Eventually it'll come to you, but you can't chase it. Just let it happen. Be open, and everything will come to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I have felt, and I think I only fully realized it or sort of accepted it recently, which is why I wanted to talk about it in the issue so much, because the reason the issue is called a God-shaped hole, I mean, I just called it that because it's a term people use for, like, when you feel like there's something missing spiritually.
Yeah.
And it just worked well. But that is, like, that feeling that something is missing is like you feel like you have a hole in your heart as to, like, I don't know what's meant to be there, but I feel like there's something and I just don't know what it is yet, or I don't know if I will find it, or I don't know if it'll even happen. But yeah, I think acknowledging that it was there was what first started me into, like, thinking about, maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah.
And then I got on the path of, like, I don't think any one religion is right, but I think there's something that they all get right in some way. And I think if there is what I just call a something, there is a something, a God, a creator, a spiritual force, a higher power, an interconnective energy. Maybe it's just consciousness itself, whatever it is, that something I think has to exist in some form. I just don't know what it is yet. But now I'm at least open to the possibility that it's there. And that's why I think that was the major first step I made, was just, like, acknowledging my own dismissal of, like, it as a possibility at all.
Yeah. And it's amazing to watch you be open to the idea of spirituality. I've seen so many people not willing to be open to the idea of that, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
There's also, you don't necessarily, like, I think there's a difference between religion and beliefs. Religion is like following a set of beliefs.
Yeah.
And you can believe in anything that you really want to, whatever fits your own logic.
Yeah.
Really.
I think there's a lot of people that are religious that are actually not spiritual. They just, maybe they either grew up in a church, or they grew up, in whatever religion they're in, or whatever belief system they're in, and they just sort of adopted it without thinking about it, or without sort of second guessing it, or without analyzing it, or seeing how it fit into their perspective or whatever. They just sort of, like, it's just the normal that they've always been there with.
Yeah.
and they haven't had a spiritual experience, but maybe they just go to church because it's like part of their routine, or they
Yeah.
go, to synagogue or whatever religion they're in. So there's tons of people that are like that in religion. So it's confusing when you're an atheist because there's tons of people like that. And there's also people who've had the experiences and who are
Mm.
they're actual spiritual people as well as religious people. Like they have their set of beliefs, but they believe that it aligns with the experiences that they've had, and that forms like one whole um,
Belief system.
belief system, I guess. But
Yeah.
like, if you're calling a religion a belief system, it doesn't really work. But like, it
Mm.
forms like one whole core of how they view their spirituality.
Mm.
When you have like the belief system that connects with your own experience.
Yeah.
Whereas like I don't really have either, in a sense. Like I have ideas about what could be, and I have an understanding of what an experience might be like, but I have no experience with the experience. I don't have a set of belief systems that I think are true. As I said, I think all the religions have. There's no way that I could see that one of them is just 100% right and the other ones are wrong. I think that's stupid.
Yeah.
But I also don't think all of them are completely wrong and that it's like some other answer. It's possible, but like I feel like they probably all have some element of truth in them. It's basically the same way I think about most things, like politics,
Mm.
whatever. No one's completely right, no one's completely wrong, but I do think they're all talking about the same thing. Like, Christianity might call it God. Uh, Muslims might call it Allah. You call it the Creator. Hindus might call it. I totally forget, but
Yeah.
they're all like they have different names. Even like the Romans, when they're like, "Oh, it's Zeus and his children" or whatever.
Yeah.
It's probably the same thing. They might have had religious experiences of their own way back then. They just came up with tons of mythology and stories around it and stuff.
Yeah.
But I think it's unlikely that they're all wrong, and it's unlikely that they're talking about different things. Like it's possible there's different gods for different cultures, but
Mm.
I think it's more likely that there's just something, and everyone has different perspectives on it that all are partially correct. But I
Mm.
don't know if knowing the full truth is even possible.
Yeah. And you know what? Maybe we will never know the full truth. Like when I pass in my culture, I am taught that I will turn into an eagle and I will flourish as an eagle in the afterlife.
Mm.
And that's something I believe in, but it's something that is unknown. Like I will never know if I will actually become that.
Yeah.
And I don't know in this life now if I will go into the spiritual world, or if I die, then like maybe I die and I just die. It's simple as that, nothing more. Maybe there is no spiritual power,
Yeah.
but it's the feelings I have is what overcomes the thought of something higher up. Like I've felt that higher power, but I've never seen it, never physically felt it, but emotionally, I've felt that power, and so that's what makes me strongly believe in my own culture and in the Creator.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a big part of like the disbelief is because there's like this idea that emotions are just this old part of our monkey brain that doesn't work properly anymore or something. But
Mm.
emotions are very powerful,
Yeah.
and all of like the vulnerability work that I've been doing with journaling and reflection, meditation, and all sorts of stuff over the past year has really opened me up to how like not useful, but like just how transformative emotions can be. Like you just like sitting with them and welcoming them and seeing like where they come from, treating them with curiosity instead of immediately judging, an emotion that comes up or trying to avoid it or resist it. Um, you realize just like how powerful emotions can be, especially when some people are so like disconnected from their emotions that their emotions just control them.
Yeah.
And that's like I think a lot of people will see that and think, oh, they're emotional, they're being
Mm.
You know, like it's like a hive mind. They're part of the mob or whatever,
Yeah.
and they're not thinking for themselves. And thought and thinking and rationality is thought of like this higher level of mental state where it's like I'm above my emotions because I can think my way through things.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like, you can't outthink an emotional problem. Like an emotional problem, if you're avoiding an emotion or you're having like a judgment for someone else or yourself, you can't think your way out of it. You have to feel it first.
Yeah.
And the problem with that is that a lot of people don't want to sit with their feelings because sometimes they are painful, sometimes they're really uncomfortable, and sitting with them is hard. And that's the hardest part of being vulnerable is like sitting with the unwanted emotions, sorry, and also being willing to be seen and
Mm.
to be willing to like be seen taking your emotions seriously. Because when people see you take your emotions seriously, there's sometimes a part of them just thinks, oh, look at this,
Yeah.
it's a judgment, but it's like a projection,
Mm.
but it's I don't know, people think of emotions as like this lesser thing sometimes, and I don't think they are. I think they're at least equal to thought,
Yeah.
but they might even be above thought in terms of their capability for decision making or for just like knowing when something is right. Like intuition is weird because you can think your way through a problem, think your way through a decision, but then when you just feel like something is right or wrong,
Yeah.
you have no way to explain why you feel it's right or wrong, but you just know it. You're like,
Yeah.
I know this is the right option.
Yeah.
I can't put it into words. I can't turn it into a formula, but I know it's right.
Mm.
And I can come up with reasons as to why it's right rationally, but I didn't form that opinion through logic. I just know it is.
Yeah.
And I think that's really curious. I think it plays a role in all of what we're talking about somehow.
Yeah. I've always been open to being curious. What it sounds like you're talking about is building that Qŵayɛgəns, that strong-minded, strong-hearted. Your heart talks to your mind, and your mind talks to your heart,
Yeah,
right?
probably.
And so maybe that's where that connection is, and where all those feelings come into play. It sounds like Qŵayɛgəns, strong-minded, or building that strong mind, that strong heart,
Yeah.
taking in those emotions and then analyzing them, feeling them, and then thinking of them. It involves the consciousness and your heart, or
Your soul or whatever you want to call
your
it. Yeah.
soul. There's all these aspects that play a role into your Qŵayɛgəns, your strong-minded, your strong heart.
Yeah. I think that's definitely like not like the crossroads, but like I called it threshold in the issue, but it's just like the place I'm at right now,
Mm.
where I'm like focusing on emotions more and trying to take them more seriously without taking them literally. Like they're signals. I listen to them, I welcome them, but I'm not
Mm.
gonna like let them control my life. But I'm not gonna try and like force my will onto them
Yeah.
in that way, because I've always been really strong-minded in terms of like just being really logical. I
Yeah.
like knowing the truth. I like figuring things out. I love learning things. I love seeing connections between things. I've always like watched tons of video essays, listened to tons of podcasts, read
Yeah.
books about different topics and all sorts of things. Like I'm fully entrenched in just like mental masturbation for the sake of just learning things and because learning things is cool and I like knowing why.
Yeah.
Like why is my favorite question.
Mm.
But I've also always been a big feeler. And for the longest time, I thought of it as a weakness
Mm.
because I have this big capacity for love and for like positive emotions, but I also have this big capacity for anxiety, over analyzing,
Mm.
feeling like totally despondent and cut off and lonely. Never like super depressed or suicidal, thankfully, but like from what I've like, I think the best description I've heard was actually Sebum, which is kind of funny, the bodybuilder, and he said emotions are felt on a spectrum, and
Yeah.
if you try and numb yourself to one end of the spectrum,
Yeah.
what you end up doing is actually shrinking the entire spectrum. So if you want to feel the highest sense of bliss and joy and love in your life, you need to be fully welcoming and open to the darkest days of your life, because those will grow your capacity for feeling on like the whole thing.
Yeah.
And like Joe Hudson talks about it in the same way, but he says it in this like gut-wrenching quote where he says, I enjoy heartbreak because it grows my capacity for love. And like the first time I heard that was like,
that's
what the heck is he talking about? And then when he like explained it more, every time I hear that now, it like sends chills down my spine, because it's like,
yeah,
fuck, dude,
yeah,
that is brutal.
yeah,
Or like he'll say similar stuff about like, I'm excited when I'm angry because it shows me where I need to set a boundary. Or I'm excited about this emotion because it tells me there's a part of myself I haven't dug into deep enough yet.
yeah.
Like when I feel judgment towards someone, I can look at that and go, huh, where's that coming from? Like there's a piece of me I don't understand yet.
Yeah.
And that's just what I've sort of been opening up more towards. And yeah, that's just sort of like the shift I'm on lately. It's like sparked this entire issue basically that I'm still writing, because part 2 is yet to come out. But yeah,
of course. Yeah, the only way, like the way that I've been taught, like when it comes to conversations like this, is to tell like your own experience related to that. So the only way that I can kind of relate to you is by my own experience.
Yeah, of course.
Like I was the same way. I grew up strong-minded, strong-hearted. I always had this fire in me. But what I didn't know was how weak my spirituality was.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that until I went to that sweat lodge, until I broke down, until I went fully vulnerable to the entire world. That's where my spirituality grew. And that's the moment where I felt my little self. And maybe our minds and our hearts, like think of it as like a timeline, like we're all moving together, right? Maybe at some point my spirituality, like younger Andrew, was stuck back here because he couldn't move on from the trauma or the pain, the suffering that he had to go through. And so up until this point, my mind and heart felt like they were way too far ahead. And so they needed that spirituality to come and catch up with me.
Yeah.
And so maybe it's the same transitioning you're going through. Is, maybe you have a strong mind and a strong heart, and you know it, you can feel it, but maybe your spirituality isn't as strong, or your soul isn't as strong as your mind and heart, and you need all aspects of life within you to work in order to move forward. Like you need to be physically healthy, you need to be mentally healthy, spiritually healthy, you need to be emotionally healthy. You need all these things in order to move forward, right?
Actually, yeah, I think emotional and spiritual are like kind of the same thing, but yeah.
Emotional and spiritual, yeah. You think they're the same?
I think they are.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on though. Yeah.
But
I understand what you're saying. All parts
Yeah.
need to go together for you to move forwards.
Yeah, I think yeah, every aspect of us, like all of those things put together is what helps us move forward within life. And so I had to work on my spirituality in order to feel better, in order to feel ready to move forward in life. I needed to go back and feel those emotions, go through that hardship I went through in order to move forward. And so maybe you are very strong-minded, you have a very westernized scientific way of thinking.
Yeah, of course.
And your heart, it's like set ablaze, right? You have inspirations, you have goals, you do all these things, you have major discipline within yourself, which all like are major aspects of strong-minded and strong-hearted. But maybe you don't have that spiritual side, and your unconsciousness is telling you and wanting you to explore that spirituality in order for it to get up to date with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so. I think the main thing is that I just like, for the longest time as an atheist, and even as an agnostic when I was like, I'm not gonna say for certain I know there isn't a God, but like I don't think there is. There might be, but whatever.
Mm-hmm.
For the longest time, I just didn't even think spirituality was like a part of me that I needed. Like I didn't even think it was like a necessary part of my whole as a person. I
Yeah.
was like, some people do that, whatever, that's them. I don't need that. I have, all the things that I know and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
But the biggest realization was like, oh, this thing that I've left on the side over here that I locked out of the room,
Yeah.
it's been wanting to come in and I just didn't realize it.
Yeah.
And that's like, like what I called the God-shaped hole, like the thing that I felt was missing.
Yeah.
I realized that I had just been ignoring it for the longest time and pretending like I didn't need it or that it wasn't a part of not my identity, but like just a part of me. Um, yeah, I think that was one of the major shifts, which again, I came at through vulnerability and emotional work and stuff and self-reflection and sort of realizing, like seeing a lot of patterns um, through my journal and like analyzing my journal, going over it and like, hey, this thing came up like 5 months ago with this person, and I did the exact same thing 3 months ago, and I'm just repeating the same loop. What's going on here? And like when I hear Joe Hudson say, every problem that you have that's an emotional problem is just you avoiding an emotion.
Yeah.
That really clicked for me when he like explained it like that, because it's like I can go back through my journal, I can see, and every time when I feel like I'm having a problem now, I immediately think, what emotion am I avoiding? Let me sit with how I'm feeling. What is something I'm trying to resist in myself? What is something that I'm not letting come to light? And immediately after that, once I identify it, I'm like, oh, it's this. I don't want to be judged. Or, oh, it's this. I'm scared of being alone. Or, oh, it's this. Then the clarity comes and I'm just like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm okay then.
Yep.
There's not a problem. I just wasn't letting myself feel this thing. And when I go back through my journal, it's the same. Or like when I think the awareness meditation brings really helps with this as well. Sort of just being able to like be present and like thinking in the moment.
Yeah.
Ties in with self-reflection really well. But that was like the big unlock for me, was it's like spirituality is a part of me and I've been ignoring it for so long, but it's needed. And I didn't think it was needed, but it is. And not only that, but I think emotional work is spiritual work, as I said in the issue. Like I think they're connected in some sort of deep way.
Yeah.
Where it's like, because they're so unexplainable yet so powerful, and they've, like, emotions, at least scientifically, have evolved in our biology for way longer than we had rational thought.
Yeah.
Like emotions are throughout the animal kingdom. Every animal feels emotions.
Yeah.
But the reason humans are humans is because of the fact that we have a prefrontal cortex. We can think about our own thoughts. We can think about the future in terms of now. We can think, oh, if I make a fire and save food for later, then I'll be alive for later. Like that was like the spawn of Homo sapiens sapiens, which is like, at least what I learned in middle school, the reason it's Homo sapiens sapiens is because the sapiens is like thinking or consciousness or something, and it's like you can think about your own thoughts, and that's what separates humanity from most of the other animals.
Yeah.
But I think that the emotions are just they've been there so long that we can't underestimate them. And I think I'm just finally starting to realize that now. Is the main point of this issue is like, I have been closed off for a long time.
Yeah.
Not only to spirituality, but to like parts of myself. And I'm willing to open that up now. And I think content's been a big part of it as well, like posting regularly, sharing my thoughts, and like trying to force myself not to care what people think. And then through that realizing forcing myself isn't a good idea, and then just sort of not actually caring what people think.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And where exactly are you with the spirituality belief? Like, are you believe in spirituality? You believe there's something higher up, a higher power, or are you just kind of in the moment? You're feeling like there's a possibility of that.
Yeah, I don't know. As I've said, like, since I don't have an experience, I don't think I can fully like believe anything yet.
Yeah.
Which is the problem. But I'm willing. I'm fully open to the fact there could be something, and I think it's likely that there is, but I just don't know, and I don't have any like direct connection to it.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of just like sitting in this weird middle ground.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, this has been a part of me that's been missing for a long time, and I'm finally opening up to it. But I've realized I also can't force myself into it, so I kind of just have to like sit here in the possibility of letting it happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess my advice for you would be to not force it,
Yeah.
but to explore. Explore different religions, different beliefs, explore that whole world, and eventually something will talk to you from any of those places. Something will come to you and say, you'll feel that connection.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would just, and you've already done all of the first good steps. Being vulnerable, opening up your mind, opening up your heart. You're already doing all of the first kind of steps to the spiritual world. But yeah, I wouldn't force it, nor I wouldn't force it, but I would explore more ideas around spirituality, and something will come to you. Something will.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
Just
just got to believe and have faith, and something will come.
yeah. I guess that's kind of where I sit, is that I feel like something probably will happen at some point. I just
Yeah,
don't know what it'll be, can't know what it'll be.
yeah.
But just try things out, experiment.
I liked, was it Andrew Huberman who was on Chris Williamson's last podcast, where he talks
He was on recently, yeah.
he talks about how believing in God, he doesn't know if God is real, and he doesn't really care if he's not real.
Yeah.
He likes the idea of God, and he's going to believe in God up until his last day,
Yeah, I
even though,
used one of those clips in
yeah,
a recent video where he said for the longest time he ignored the voice in his head that said, I think there's a God and I'm gonna pray.
yeah,
And once he finally opened up to it, he felt like a big sense of peace.
yeah,
And he said, even if it might just be fully explained by neurological mechanisms in the brain, because he's a neurologist, right?
yeah,
Or sorry, neuroscientist or whatever. Like, even if it's all just some sort of emotional neurological pathway that just makes us feel good and there's nothing actually out there, he said, I don't care because it feels right and I believe that it's an important part of me, basically.
yeah. And I think I'm at his point where he is. I have no clue, or no idea if there is an afterlife or if there is a spiritual world.
Yeah.
But I am going to believe with all of my heart and all of my mind that there is. And I'm willing to bet my life on whether there is something out there. And, it helps me, it grounds me. It
I think,
makes me feel better. It makes me feel that peace.
I think that's what faith is,
Yeah,
pretty much. It's
yeah,
just full acceptance of not
yeah,
knowing but believing anyways.
yeah. Full acceptance of the unknown. Yeah, I think that's where I'm at.
Yeah.
But I'm also really exploring the idea of interconnectedness. Believing that we all come from one thing,
Hmm.
but we all have our own individualistic personalities and ideas, beliefs. But we all come from, or we're all connected through some sort of pathway.
Yeah.
Um,
Like, everyone is fully 100% unique.
Yeah.
in terms of their DNA, and they're also like their timing, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm.
Like you could theoretically imagine it to be possible. It's very improbable, but like there could be at some point in time two humans that exist with the exact same DNA, but like thousands or hundreds of years apart or whatever.
Yeah.
But since they're living in different times, they'll still have completely different lives. So
Yeah.
it's not even like every single person throughout all of human history and whoever will exist is completely one on one,
Mm.
like one of one, sorry.
Mm.
There's only one of them. One of you, one of me,
Yeah.
one of everyone we know.
Yeah.
And but at the same time there's some sort of connective something.
Yeah. I believe there's something that connects us.
Yeah.
And maybe there's multiple gods, maybe there's one God, maybe there's no God. But either way, there's something, maybe it's through energy. You've watched Avatar, right?
Yeah.
How,
There's the tree of
they
life and stuff. Yeah.
they take the energy, and when they die, they give the energy back.
Mm-hmm.
There's that reciprocal relationship. I think I have a similar idea to that. Like we all come from something, and when we die, we give it back to that something.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I think that's where I'm at
Yeah.
right now with my spiritual side of me, and yeah,
Yeah, I think the thing with the afterlife, like that's one of the hardest parts I have to grasp. I mean, obviously because it's not even like partially unknowable, it's just like completely unknowable. Like you have no idea what's going to happen when you die. You don't return from it. People have near death experiences, but no one fully dies
mm-hmm.
for like, years and then comes back and is like, hey guys, this is what happened. Like sometimes people, have cardiac arrest and they'll die for like a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Technically, they're like, technically dead,
Yeah,
but like no one fully rots down to the bone and then comes back. So like there's no way to know what is on the other side, so to say.
yeah,
Um, there could be something. All we know is that when someone dies, they're not here anymore.
yeah,
They're not in this world.
yeah,
Maybe they're somewhere else. Maybe they're just fully gone. Maybe their soul lives on in some way that is totally like unreachable to us. Maybe there is a heaven and a hell. Maybe there is reincarnation, as the Hindus say, and you get
yeah,
reborn through some other pathway.
yeah,
Maybe we're in the Matrix and we're all just a bunch of batteries getting sucked on by aliens.
yeah.
But the problem is that it's completely unknowable,
Mm-hmm.
in the same way that the something is unknowable in the spiritual sense of whatever the thing is that either connects everything or is the higher power of some sort or whatever. Death is fully unknowable.
Yeah,
And
100%.
all the science we have tells us that it's just, there's nothing and you're gone and there's no part of you left.
Yeah.
But it's not like you can't know that for sure until you die. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You and I had a conversation the other day about coincidence and
mm-hmm.
how people believe in coincidence, and I brought the idea of dreams, how
Yeah,
dreams connect us to the spiritual side, or as if we're in another dimension, right? Um,
that's another area of science that's also just like totally guesswork, basically.
yeah,
It's just like consciousness. It's like we
but
have ideas about what it might be, but like we have no real idea why we dream, what the dreams are for, what they even are, other than the
yeah,
fact that they happen.
yeah, but there's also, scientists have discovered that there's something that goes on in our brain just before we die, and scientists believe it's us fast forwarding through our entire life, rewatching our memories just before we die. For me, I don't think that's a coincidence. I think that's like the exit to this life and the entry into the next life. You watched everything that you did in this life. Maybe you have regrets, maybe you're happy with it, but you watch all of it, and then in that moment, as soon as the brain activity shuts off, that's when you transfer over to the spiritual world, and a whole new world. All the questions you may have, maybe they're answered right then and there. But I don't believe it's a coincidence that our brain has that activity just before we die. I think there's 100% a good reason for why we think, or why we envision our entire lives just before we die. That obviously it doesn't happen in every death, because some deaths are just like instant, but deaths with like cardiac arrest or something, they have that, something goes on in their brain, and it's like do you know exactly what it is? What part of the brain that does that?
I'm not sure. I think I've heard of what you're talking about,
Yeah,
but yeah, I'm not sure what
yeah.
mechanism it is or whatever.
Well, even scientists believe that's our brain, or the brain activity that's seen there. Scientists believe that that's us looking at our entire life
Mm-hmm.
just before the last breath.
Like flicking through the memories or something.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe it's not on a strict timeline. Maybe you don't start as a baby and you go through all this. Maybe it's separate memories. Maybe it's all good memories. Maybe it's all bad memories.
Yeah.
There's no way to know that. But I think within that, with just after we die, is when that transfer occurs. When we go into the spiritual world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So the only thing I had left to ask you about is whether there were any parts of the issue where you had like some immediate pushback, or like you read it and you like either didn't understand what I was coming from, or you just didn't agree with whatever I was saying, or if there was something you felt was missing from the issue. And if that's the case, we can also get into like what I'm planning to talk about in the second part. But anyways, the main question is just, was there anything you disagreed with or pushback you had on it?
No, there was nothing that I disagreed with. I agreed with most of it. It was really nice reading about how this is how you used to think, and this is how you think now,
Yeah, like seeing the
and
journey.
and then this is where you're going. Yeah, you talked about your journey through it all, and it's been really cool to see in person.
Mm-hmm.
Only thing I would add into it, and I think you'll have to wait until you have uh, some sort of spiritual experience.
Mm-hmm.
I think it is to add in how, or like how you can maybe delve into your own spiritual side of you. Um, but you need to learn that before you can even talk about that,
Yeah.
right? So that's the only thing I would comment on is, add in that last piece of, here's how you might be able to. And there's no way of telling somebody else you're going to experience a spiritual side of you through this, but
Yeah.
maybe come up with like a concept or an idea
Mm-hmm.
of how maybe they can do that through your own lived experiences.
Yeah.
I've talked to people about my own lived experiences, and all of a sudden they were open to new ideas, and then they go explore, it's spiritual activity, and then all of a sudden their eyes are opened to the spiritual world. And I only did that by talking about my own lived experiences.
Yeah.
So coming up with a framework on how to maybe do that would be phenomenal, but only your own framework. I wouldn't actually state this is how you're gonna
Yeah.
reach your spiritual side. Just like, this is how I did it. Yeah, I don't know. I loved the entire reading. I loved that you're changing and adapting to a whole new side of you.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal to see. It's inspirational. It's really
Thank you.
cool to have you be open to the spiritual world, because I highly believe in it, and,
Mm-hmm.
it's part of my identity. Usually when I'm introducing myself to people, or I get to know somebody, they'll know about me being a spiritual person, like pretty much in the early stages of us getting to know each other. Just because I love talking about theories, religion, beliefs, and everything.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't. It's just very fascinating to watch you transition from kind of a Western scientific way of thinking to more of an openness.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think thinking through that lens, you're so closed off that you don't get to see, like, you don't get to explore the entire world. Where as soon as you open up your eyes, it's like, oh, I'm going to check this out. I'm going to explore that. What's this? And all of a sudden, it's just like everything opens.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I wouldn't say anything else other than that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, where I'm planning to go with the next issue, just as like not like a teaser, but just like, I've written some of it already, but mostly what I'm talking about, I'm delving more into the fact that I haven't had an experience, and this whole like I only have the conceptual understanding of it and all that. But I'm also planning to talk about how I think that the spiritual journey is at its core a journey of self-discovery, and it's all internal, as I was talking about earlier, with welcoming your own emotions and exploring the vulnerability of who you are at the core. And the thing is that another part of it that we haven't even really touched on, which is perfect because I'll be talking about it in the next issue, is there is no end point. It's not like you reach awakening and you're like, oh, I get it now.
Yeah.
I'm done.
Yeah.
The whole point of it is that, even as Joe Hudson talks about, like when he feels an emotion, he finds a part of himself he hasn't explored yet. It's the same with your spiritual journey. At least I think it is.
Yeah.
It seems like likely to be the case. I feel like it's believable that it's basically an infinite regress of like unfolding new parts of yourself.
Yeah.
And discovering new layers underneath what you thought was there. And it's like a lifelong journey.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's going to be a lifelong journey for sure. Yeah, like I said, I have no clue if there's going to be a spiritual world, but I do believe there will be. And I hope there is, and I have faith that there is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to finish it off with a quote that I did use in the first part of the issue.
Yeah.
And I think it really sums up this idea of emotions and the power they have in tandem with rationality, but also just, as you were talking about, with strong spirit, strong mind. And the quote is from Pascal, who's like an old writer. I think he's a religious writer, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And the quote is, the heart knows reasons which reason knows nothing of.
That's powerful. Yeah.
But yeah, I enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah, me too.
And thanks for sitting down with me today.
Yeah, it was phenomenal.
It was great, and I really hope people get something out of it from watching it. And I'd love if people like shared their own experiences and just connected with it from their own perspective.
Yeah. I love that you're doing this, that you're inspiring others. You might even be inspiring an entire generation to think differently. You never know. You're in the early stages of your content.
Yeah.
And by the end, you may have touched many thousands of hearts. I like to say, though, as long as you're able, or you have the opportunity to help one person, that is more than enough good in the world.
Yeah.
Is by helping just one person. And so either you get one view or you get 1,000 views. As long as somebody in there feels the words that you're speaking about, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
So I would continue.
That's what I try and focus on.
Yeah, I would continue with the content.
Chase the feeling, chase the intrinsic reward of actually doing the content.
Yeah.
And try my best, as hard as it is, to ignore the metrics, ignore the likes, ignore the follows, and just focus on what feels right to me and focus on making the content that I want to see in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the way to do it.
Thanks for believing in me.
Yeah.
Yeah.